Welcome to the Aero General Service channel. I'm your host, Corey Barlotti. In today's video, we have some old footage for you. We're going to be putting a sump pump here in the backyard, and we're going to be connecting 2 gutter downspouts to this sump pump, as well as some new channel drains that are going to be going around this pool deck. But that is going to be coming in part 2 because there's a lot of footage and this is a big job. So this is part 1 of a 3-parter. And remember to call 811 before you start digging. That way they can mark out any utilities that may be in the area. So as you can see, we're starting to dig the trench now for where the channel drain and the second downspout are going to connect into the sump pump basin. Now, I like to use these sewage basins because these are a lot stronger than your sump basins that go underneath your house. The sump basins that go underneath the house or in a crawl space or in a basement, those are meant to have concrete around them. So that helps give them strength. So as you can see here, we have the sump pump basin pit dug, and there's already groundwater going into that pit. That's how low we are in this area of town. So we're going to be adding some drain rock to the bottom of the pit. That way our sump pump basin can sit on top of the drain rock and allow the weep holes to drain a lot easier than if it was just sitting directly in the soil. So now I'm using a 4-inch hole saw. That way we can stick our SDR35 main line right through the hole so it can enter the sump pump basin. Now here's a quick tip for you. You can go ahead and duct tape the primer and the glue together. That way they're always together and it just makes it easier to move them around and less likely to kick one of them over. All right, so we started laying our SDR35 4-inch drainage pipe main line, starting from where the channel drain and the first gutter are gonna enter into the sump pump basin, and we're gonna get those connected in. So now that we got our SDR main lines connected into the sump pump, I'm going to go ahead and take the drill and I'm going to drill some weep holes at the bottom of the sump pump pit. That way the water can both come in from the ground and it can leave if the area dries out. Now that we have our sump pump pit in the ground, it's time to install our pump. We're going to be using this Zoller pump that moves 48 gallons per minute. Some people pronounce it Zoller, some people pronounce it Zoller. All I care is that the pump works efficiently and it moves the water from the backyard to the front yard. So now once you take the pump out of the box, go ahead and inspect it and make sure that there's no factory defects or damage to the pump itself. Check the float, make sure the float switch functions properly and it clicks when it goes up and down. Also plug it in and make sure when that float switch goes up that the pump turns on, and when it goes down it turns off. You want to make sure that everything's functioning before adding any fittings to this and doing any assembly to it. So now you're going to install a 1.5-inch male nipple threaded to go into the female side of the pump, and then you're going to prime and glue a riser in between that, and then you're going to drill a small weep hole in between that and the check valve. That way, if your pump ever becomes airlocked, that weep hole can allow the pressure in the air to escape. Now, as you can see, I'm using a 1.5-inch hole saw to make my sump pump line discharge hole at the top of the sump pump basin, but low enough so it can still be buried underground and below the sod level. Now, when laying any kind of pipe in the ground, I always like to work from the house towards the street. It just makes it a lot easier to build your system and put the layout in, as I have found out from doing this over the years. So I'm putting in the 1.5-inch line right now. All right, so now as you can see, I'm priming up my fittings before solvent welding them together. And you can see the pump sitting next to me that already has the check valve assembled on it. Now, remember guys, anytime you are gluing PVC together, if it's under pressure, it needs to be primed before you solvent weld them together. I don't care what anybody says. If they say, oh, you don't have to use primer, the solvent weld glue alone will be fine. If it's under pressure, use primer first, then your glue. And if you don't believe me, you can do a little experiment at home for yourself. I want you to go ahead and take 2 separate pieces of pipe and fittings, and one of them use only solvent cement, and then on the other set use a primer before you use the solvent cement. Then take yourself some channel locks and you'll see for yourself that ripping apart the ones that were only glued are a lot easier than ripping apart the ones that were primed first before being glued. The primer makes all the difference because it softens the plastic, it prepares the plastic and gets it ready to be solvent welded together. Because this is an actual glue. This is a solvent cement. It's a solvent. It melts the plastics together. That's how that works. So now I'm just slowly working my way down the trench, gluing each joint together with both primer and PVC cement. And we're gonna go ahead and finish off this sump pump line. All right, guys, so I just wanted to take a minute and explain how this video series here is gonna work. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, this is gonna be part 1 of a 3-part series, and this is all on the same property. So basically, this first part is just gonna be the sump pump installation with the 2 gutter downspouts and the channel drains in the back that we're getting ready to install. The second part will be installing the channel drains around the entire pool. And then the third part is going to be installing the channel drains in the front of the driveway, in front of the garage, along with piping in the downspouts for both the left and the right side of the home and getting the majority of that discharged with a gravity fed system towards the street, because we had enough fall in order to do that. So stay tuned for those next videos. Now that our sump pump line is fully assembled, it's time to start burying it up. All right, now this last bit of footage is when we finished the entire job around this whole entire property. We went ahead and we just left the hose on the pool deck so the water could travel into the channel drains and make its way through our main line into our sump pump basin. And we're gonna allow that water just to fill up so it activates the float switch on the sump pump so we can make sure that everything's functioning properly and then the water discharges to the road. I just wanted to take a second and thank everybody that continues to watch our videos and support our channel. It really means a lot to us. We strive to bring you guys the best content that we can, and we always want to use quality materials and do a quality job on all of our job sites. So thank you guys for the continued support. It really does mean a lot to us.